Here in America, work is in trouble. We've offshored our manufacturing, sent away good jobs, and lost so much ability to make things. American Giant is a company that's pushing back against this tide. They make high-quality clothing, sweatshirts, jeans, dresses, jackets, and so much more, right here in the USA. Visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order when you use code STAPLE20 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com, promo code STAPLE20.
Running a business can be exhausting. Building your website shouldn't be. With Wix, you can express your ideas, give direction, then leave the heavy lifting to AI. From site creation to branded content and images. Have fun with the details. Customize what you want the way you want. And manage your whole business from a centralized dashboard with expert AI tools. Build, scale, and enjoy the incredible results. You can do it all yourself on Wix.
You can go to your doctor or your practitioner and say, like, how did this happen? You probably, if you're really honest with yourself, you know a lot of the reasons why. And that sounds kind of like a bummer, but at the same time, like, who else would you rather be responsible? Because you can't control if anyone else in this world is going to let you down, let your body down, let your soul down, let your spirit down. But you always have 100% control over whether or not you let yourself down.
Welcome to the Beautifully Broken podcast, brought to you by AmpCoil. I'm your host, Freddie Kimmel, and on this show we discuss the common thread survivors share after walking through the fire, the practitioners making a difference, and the treatment modalities that deliver healing back into the hands of the people who need it most. Witness the inspiration we gain by navigating the human experience with grace, humility, and a healthy dose of mistakes. Because part of being human is being beautifully broken. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Beautifully Broken podcast. We have an incredible guest today. Welcome to the show, Razi Berry.
Freddie, thank you so much. We were just talking about how I just am in love with the title of your podcast, Beautifully Broken. We have, I'm sure all that's listening have felt so in touch with those words. So thank you for having me.
Well, it's an honor of me and the audience. I know this because you were actually a module in the Institute for Functional Health Coaching with Carmen Hunter.
Oh, yes.
Where I took her course in her school and you know, I watched your video training for the institute at one point. So I know of some of the things of what you've done for the health and wellness industry, but can you give the audience a little bit about your background and what you do?
Yes, sure. In 2005, I had just found naturopathic medicine. Prior to that, I had been going from doctor to doctor for some really horrible symptoms that hit me in my 20s, my mid-20s, that were just, it was such a complex clinical picture that no conventional doctor was able to help me. And I was told to go on disability, and I was prescribed all kinds of pills. In the end, it was a compound of fibromyalgia, EBV, and chronic fatigue syndrome. My Lyme test came back reactive, so nobody ever really knew. But basically, it was just severe pain, and the medicine, and to where I had to quit my job. I had to leave my job, which was a really wonderful career. And when the doctors told me to just go on disability, I was just kind of dumbfounded, because that's not how I wanted to live my life. And even though I didn't have like a terminal illness, I was still living a life with a complete lack of quality. I was in so much pain that I actually had to crawl across the floor of my apartment from my bed to my bathroom and back.
Can you describe what, when you say pain, and you say triggered by Epstein-Barr or fibromyalgia, can you give a little descriptor of that for the people at home, what your pain was like? Because it really is so different across each individual body.
It is. And I kept journals during that time. And I'm glad I did, because the few times, and they're usually times of stress or loss or grief that I've had some of the symptoms return, I am able to look back on my journal, because when the pain does come, it is so intense that it's frightening. And I think people with chronic pain have that. So I would have mostly pain on the left side of my body and paresthesias, which were like some numbness would happen. And I would tell my doctors that the pain was like ant bites underneath this, like the surface of my skin. So not like in the bone or in the muscle, but more like nerve and tissue pain. And then I was very sensitive at night, like just the sheets touching like the top of my legs would be very painful. And I would get migraines that would take my vision in one of my eyes. And it was frightening and painful. And so it created quite a state of anxiety. At one point I was actually afraid to leave my house because when I would leave, like I couldn't pay attention to what I needed to do. I couldn't focus to find my keys. I couldn't concentrate on a conversation with someone because the pain was, sometimes it felt like shocks, like a little lightning storm. And so what was usually given to me was some sort of pain medication, or that was when they were giving a lot of tricyclic antidepressants for pain. And of course, none of these really changed the pain. And so after just a few weeks on a medication, I'd say, this isn't what I'm looking for. At that point, they're like, well, then you need to see a psychiatrist, right? So I was at the Mayo Clinic actually, and they saw the psychiatrist and he found my psychiatric picture to be fine. So that's when I went back to the lead doctor on my case. And I basically said, she said, the pain is in your head. It's not in your body. And I said, well, I'm feeling it in my body and you're fired.
Thank you. Thank you. I was hoping we were going to get there.
Yeah. And so I said that with tears, like streaming. Like I remember not really being able to focus on her because I was just streaming tears, not sobbing and yelling, but just very quietly weeping. And that's when I decided, I guess nobody's going to help me. I have to help myself. And so there was a lack of online information back then, because this was actually before I started my journal. So this was in 2001. And I just had to do a lot of research and read a lot. And I finally found my way to a naturopathic doctor who listened to my symptoms and, more importantly, told me, you know what, the body has an ability to heal. In naturopathic medicine, we call it the vital force, vis medicatrix naturae, the healing power of nature. And what the doctor told me, and other doctors since that I've gotten to know, is that we as doctors, our job is to strengthen the healing ability of your body, which is so much different than other forms of integrative medicine that are like, well, I'm going to give you this something green instead of this white pill. I'm going to give you a natural substance instead of a pharmaceutical. That is part of it, but it goes even deeper than that. And when you have a practitioner that honors the fact that your body has to heal and looks at your symptoms and what I call love letters from your body, these symptoms are love letters from your body saying, pay attention, something needs to be changed here. Stop doing this, start doing that. And often that sounds like a mysterious letter that's spoken in a language that we don't know how to read. But when you reconnect back to what we can talk about, or where I find the three main areas of disconnection, you learn to really to understand and speak with your body, this deep, deep language. And I know from experience and from more than 2,000 cases that I've published in my journal, Naturopathic Doctor News and Review, that healing does come from within.
I find that to be true as well.
Yes. I know.
And I say, I love the love letters. That's beautiful. I say divine whispers.
I love that.
That you're let's perk the ears up. Somebody's trying to tell you something.
Yeah.
And it is, the more we get into it, we learn how many things out there are really meant to just kind of take the volume down on that voice that your body's screaming for. I know that's that balance of wanting to be out of pain and wanting to move forward, but you've got to go to the right people who have the information to bring you forward.
And a lot of information that I would get, like when I would go to counseling and stuff for my pain, was like mindfulness and living in the moment. And that's, Freddie, you know this, that's damn hard to do when you're in severe pain. to focus on this present moment, when this present moment feels like a train going through your brain, right? Or lightning coming through your body. And so I feel like in those moments, that's why I kept a journal, because when I would have like pain come again, when I started to heal and when the pain would come again, I would be able to remind myself, okay, I've been through this before and I got through it and I'm going to continue to heal. And it was like evidence. It was like my own evidence that I could get through it. And so I know I'm kind of going on a tangent, but I think that when you're going through pain, if anyone listening is going through pain, that's when we rely on other things like our social connections, our hopes and dreams. I have a whole episode and blog I did on hope and the science of hope and how important hope is. And I know that you have had this experience too, that often in conventional medicine, where they're afraid to give us false hope. But hope is proven to be powerfully healing. And so I think when you're in a moment of pain, it's really important to use other means to look back at our past and see how far we've come and look towards our future, to where we want to be. And I think that can help us in these moments of pain.
I couldn't agree more. I think it is, there's almost like there's a fear around the liability from practitioners sometimes of the hope. You know, they want to be very careful, but we're human beings at the end of the day. And that's why the industry needs an overhaul.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've been taught from day one to not trust our bodies, to trust what someone else thinks our bodies need. We're taught to, when I was pregnant with my daughters, I didn't go to conventional doctors, but conventional doctors say, get your body checked every month. Have an ultrasound this many times. When the baby's born, have these checks every month and then every year, teaching us to look at doctors or gurus or best-selling authors to decide how to move our body and when, what to eat and why. And I am friends with a lot of these experts and I love their information. But if you don't look at that through the lens of your own intuition, and if you don't really reestablish that relationship and that self-understanding through self-care practices, through self-discovery, through self-accountability, then it doesn't matter what somebody tells you to do. Only you know what is the best thing for you. And I think many probably of your guests and yourself, that's kind of a big lesson that we learn, right? That we are so disconnected that we become very confused about how to live inside these bodies that we have.
Yes, and learning the body better and better, and understanding, well, why does a profound treatment like exosomes or stem cells that should be so powerful, that should work on everybody? You put 10 people in a room and you get 5 people with amazing results, and you get 2 people with nothing. Maybe 2 people get really bad. So it's the variation in the body. And so I think loss and chronic disease, the rabbit hole, we can easily chase tome to pillar of knowledge to pillar of knowledge. And we're just always looking outside of ourselves, as opposed to, where's that skill where I check in with my body energetically and say, I kind of know what I need. I kind of know, when you really start to listen to the love letters, it's a true skill. You're like, I actually know that food is going to give me joint pain tomorrow. I know I can't have a green bean, period. I can't have the sauteed green peppers at Chipotle. I'll be wrecked. Feels like somebody's pounding on my joints with hammers. But I know that now, and I could easily just be totally ignorant to the noise and just keep eating foods that are going to make me, not feel great. So that's one example of that true listening. I think, even Klinghardt, the automatic nervous system response testing, just that they can do these great muscle testers where they can put a supplement in your hand and your body can give a stronger weak feeling. I think we can learn that on a pretty good degree, so we can get a barometer of what we need to feel well and be well and move forward.
Yes. And one of my biggest, I guess, principles in the Love is Medicine movement is about being honest with yourself. We avoid pain by looking away from things, and we look for things that sort of will anesthetize us from pain. And as a result, we are afraid of the shame or the responsibility to really take good care of ourselves. But if anyone, like if I am dealing with a challenge or a resurgence in a symptom, I usually just need to be honest with myself and find out why. And sometimes it's simple. Sometimes it's like I'm just not going to bed as early as I am supposed to. Or maybe I'm just not drinking enough water, or I'm not spending enough time outside with my feet on the earth and the sun's energy, which acts as like an actual battery for the cells of my body. And I think many people listening, you can go to your doctor or your practitioner and say, like, how did this happen? You probably, if you're really honest with yourself, you know a lot of the reasons why. And that sounds kind of like a bummer, but at the same time, like, who else would you rather be responsible? Because you can't control if anyone else in this world is going to let you down, let your body down, let your soul down, let your spirit down. But you always have 100% control over whether or not you let yourself down. And I would rather it be in my control than somebody else's. Because if I had to rely on a different person to make sure I ate right, moved my body, got enough sleep, chose healthy relationships, if I had to give that to somebody else, oh my God.
That's nope. You don't hold any power anymore.
Mm-mm.
No, I was just at the Heart-Based Medicine Summit in San Francisco last weekend, and just some incredible speakers. Patch Adams was there, and the practitioners from Heart Math, and some of the designers of Qualia, like higher level cognitive functioning supplements, and everybody. The message across the board was get out of the head, get into the heart. Just keep doing that. And the evidence coming from how many neurotransmitters and how much of the love chemical actually come from the heart, not the brain. And it's just overwhelming that we're like, we really do this is a chakra for a reason. Energy workers work on this space. We have power when we move from this as a decision-making catalyst. So activate. And it was so cool to see all these people from the allopathic medicine model having this conversation and really wanting to make change. And it was one of those, wow, I was here on the first one. You're like, this is going to be a big movement. This is going to be special for everybody to come together and just let's look at these truths that we know about the body and the way it functions.
Yes. I call them the three hearts. I know people call your gut the second brain. The language I use is the three hearts. Your head, your brain, and your heart and your gut are all probably our biggest nervous systems, right? We have a large connectome that connects all of our nervous systems because largely they're all connected, but also can operate, your gut can do things without the heart, and vice versa, but they all talk to each other. And even more so, we think with every cell in our body, not just our heads, not just our hearts, and not just our gut. We think, embodied cognition, the field of embodied cognition kind of gives some credence to that. And we think about things like cellular memory, immunological memory. We have cells in our body, even mitochondria, that sort of sense what's happening in like the surrounding tissue or the surrounding just like the relationship to other cells or other organs that kind of anticipate what the next step needs to be. Your body can sense your energy output or toxins coming in or emotional stress, and your cells sort of actually anticipate. That's how they make decisions to make more of this neurotransmitter, more of this peptide, shunt blood away from this area, create inflammation here. And so the wisdom that we have inside our body is so beyond our understanding, and I think that we get so reductionistic in, of course, modern science that taught us back from the time of like Newton that, how you understand the world around you is to take something large, like a person, and break it down into smaller parts to try to understand it. So we can look at like a cell, or we can look at a cell membrane, or we can look at mitochondria, or we can look at protons and electrons. But we miss so much when we don't also look at the whole picture, because you can look at just the moon but not understand the whole solar system.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Razi, you're working on a new documentary series, and I thought it really resonated with the title of the podcast and the message that we have here. And I wondered if you couldn't talk a little bit about love as medicine, which we've sort of alluded to.
Yes. So I published 2 journals, the Naturopathic Doctor News and Review and the International Journal of Naturopathic Medicine. And in these past 15 years, I saw patterns in all of these cases I've published that are not mine. They're of naturopathic doctors around North America mostly, that there are these patterns of how we go towards dis-ease or health. And I kind of take that and I titled it Love is Medicine, because I find that there are 3 sources of love. Some people could say 3 sources of nature, or 3 sources of God or divine wisdom, but really they're the connection to our environment and nature. So we talked about some of those. Another one is connection to each other, like our social dynamics, our relationships, and how we were raised. And then the other is just with ourselves, like the self-accountability, the self-understanding, the embodied experience of life. And I started blogging and podcasting, and all of that information, kind of the science of how we live our lives and the science of how we relate and how that impacts our physiology, our psychology. And I called it Love is Medicine, because those are all sources of love. Love is what I name the elements in our life that heal us. And so I created this documentary series, which is a 7-episode series that takes us through this journey to understand the truth of how we get sick, the truth of how we heal. Again, this is based on my experience as a patient and as a journal publisher.
So valuable.
And thank you so much, Freddie. And how to kind of navigate that journey, get more in touch with your intuition, the messages of your body, your relationships, your boundaries, your expectations. And it's a journey inside yourself, really.
Yeah. And that started, correct? That started in September?
Yes, it started September 16th to the 23rd. I don't know when this will go live, but right now at loveismedicineproject.com, it's in a replay, and we're going to evergreen it. So I really appreciate the chance to talk about it, because again, it's not my real job. My job, the way it pays my bills, is publishing the journals. But Love is Medicine, partly, Freddie, it came about when a couple years ago I had a series of 3 really significant losses. My sister died suddenly, my younger sister, and then my marriage failed. I hate to use that word, but my marriage ended, and my father died. And so it was boom, 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 3 in a row. And even though I was seemingly doing a lot of the right things, eating right, moving right, exercising and stuff, I started having severe digestive problems and a return of my hormone imbalances and pain. And it was frightening, because I thought I had conquered this. And so it caused me to explore in real ways the mind-body continuum, not just the woo-woo and chakras, which I love, but just the reality of how our physiology, we can't separate our physical bodies from our life experiences, and our cells, our nervous system, our organs react. And so I wanted to kind of figure out how and why. And that is part of what we explore at Love is Medicine and in the Love is Medicine project.
And as far as I love digesting information about health and wellness through podcasts, documentaries. I think it's a great way, it's something we can it's something we can integrate and take in, like the storytelling element, because we add another visual, especially with the documents. Is there a aside from engaging in the series, is there another way for people to work with the material to take it to another level?
Well, I'm writing a book right now, so it won't be released until next year. And I am working on a master class for people who are interested in kind of taking this journey on for themselves. But right now I've got, the continuity. It's my podcast, and I have a Facebook group where people share kind of their wins and their heartache, the moments, the beautifully broken moments. So that's why I really love this platform that you've created, because we have so much science, Freddie. I know this because I publish it. We have so much science.
It's profound. It's profound. And I know I get accused of within some of my friends that I take it to an extreme, which it's easy for somebody, that's not been through cancer and Lyme and all those things to, you and I know what it takes to feel like 100%, or maybe even more. Maybe I want to get to 110, but it takes a lot. It's a lot of work. And a simple thing like cell signaling, without, I try to just put it as simple as possible. If you get your feet on the ground for like over 40 minutes a day, that's a really tough commitment to do in some of the geographic locations and parameters under which we design our work schedule to make enough to hold the house payment, the car payment, pay off our student loans, go on vacation when we want. We almost design ourselves into this structure that we're in a box in whatever, Wi-Fi cell signaling, interrupting frequencies we're broadcast to all day, and then not getting any full body sun exposure, which is that imperative red light, that 610 to 855 nanometer wavelength, which really it gets that cell signaling going. So, I mean, those are three things that are like free that none of us do. And we, there is a pattern there. And then, like you said, well, where does that, I don't get those, energy drops, less community, less connection, less love. There's not like that cycle. And I know it's easy to spin out, but it's the simple things that were alongside us in our evolution are so important.
It is the simple things. It is the simple things. And I get it. So being a publisher for all these years, I'd always get to be kind of one of the first groups of people hearing about the latest supplement or the latest treatment or the new, designer ingredient or the new superfood. But we forget that, so we'll look at that and forget about getting back to the basics. We're always looking to hack something. Nature can't really be hacked. That's what I'm going back to saying. We've been trying, but even I do wear my blue blocking glasses, but guess what? The daylight and the computer screen is hitting other light receptors in my body, not just my eyes. So there's no excuse, and there's no running away from it. There's just no running away from it. I remember doing one of my first summits and having the light in front of me. And after the day 3, I was just feeling so sick. And if you aren't paying attention, so right now, the light's not that great, but I've got the blue light of the screen, but I just have my window here. And I know I could look a lot better, maybe a little younger if I had my fancy diva light on. But, I want to feel good today.
I'll record if I know we're not going to do video. I have a red light that I really love, and it just charges you up. But on my side of the screen, you look like the devil. So I don't always use that, but I'll have my foot in the foot bath, or I have a grounding mat, and, I'll do all those things to try to just keep, if I do have to work from the computer, I do things to try to keep it on the level.
And that's what I love. My friend, Dr. Michael Murray, who wrote the Encyclopedia of Natural Medicine many years ago, which is in so many reprints and languages. He's just somebody asked him, what should I do? And he's well, do all that you can do. Why wouldn't you do all that you can do? I don't want to have mediocre health. And another one of the lies, I think, Freddie, that is really pervasive is this idea of everything in moderation. And I'm writing about this in my book because I don't want moderate health. I don't want moderate health. Moderate health doesn't feel good. And Like, let's say screen time when I was a child, there was none. And then there was like TV, but the TV, there was only a few hours a day that had children's programming. And then at night, the TV turned off. It was just like white snow. So my parents' idea of letting their kids watch TV in moderation, well, okay, that might then been one show a day or cartoons on the weekend. Now that's changed. Same thing with access to caffeinated sugary drinks. Like, what we have access to is changing. So this idea of moderation is always leveling up. There used to be one fast food restaurant growing up here, and my parents would take me there sometimes to get a Happy Meal, but they had to drive across town, and they didn't know it was bad for me. But now there's like every corner. And so what parents might say is moderation is like, well, I'm only going to drive through a drive-through restaurant, once a week or once a day. So I think that we have to, again, go back to being honest. That's a big part of Love is Medicine. It is so empowering when you get to be that person that it all stops with you and all starts with you.
It does. So yeah. So I'm literally, back to the recipe, right? Recipe for feeling good. Like, it all starts with you. Incidentally, they're turning on 5G in New York City today. They're flicking it on. Wednesday, September 25th is like the great human experiment on the island of Manhattan. So for people, that don't know what 5G is, or you think it's like, oh, I have 5G on my Wi-Fi router. Well, 5G is just 5th generation Wi-Fi. And it's like, it's just a huge jump in the strength of the booster towers. Essentially, it's a really strong signal that needs a booster tower to jump it from home to home to home. So everything in your body is going to be flooded with this new level of frequency, and the body is an electrical body first. We talk a lot about electrics and magnetics in the show. And that's a communication method, right? So for that to be interrupted by these external factors, I just want somebody, as long as they're going to do it, we should let's see what emergency room visits do. Let's see what autoimmunity spikes in this, because it's gonna change things. I don't want to be like, I don't want to be a conspiracy theory guy, but there's definitely countries in the planet that have stopped this. They've not let it go forward, and we're rolling it out here. So it's very, very an interesting time. So sidebar and back, that's why there's a guy here tub glazing, because I'm selling my house and I'm getting out.
Yeah, good for you. Sometimes that's what I call that pruning the tree. Like, you can't, I had this, so it's hard to grow certain fruit in Phoenix in the desert. And, but some do well. And I had this apricot tree and many trees. And when you have a new tree, you're supposed to prune it back and not eat the fruit, not, stop it from fruiting the first few years, because you want to really establish strong roots for the tree. And I forgot the horticultural name for this process. But I was so excited because I had a bunch of citrus and pomegranates and stuff, but I was so excited to have apricots that I did not prune the tree. And so I got a bunch of fruit the first year and the second year, and then the next 2 years I got like no fruit. And it's because the tree was growing and the energy was going to the fruiting and not to building the really strong roots. So I had to go back to pruning my tree to really strengthen it. And so what do I mean by that? How does that relate to these environmental attacks that we have? Well, one is you have to remove yourself from, or remove from yourself, any obstacle to cure. In naturopathic medicine, we call it obstacle to cure. And so you moving is one way to do that, and strengthening your body by moving well, thinking well, loving well, sleeping well, speaking well are other ways to kind of do that. I had gone through 6 years of infertility, and it was such a dark and painful time. 5 miscarriages in 6 years. And I was doing all the right stuff. But I had this job, this career where I was making really good money. And I was good at it, but I didn't like it at all. I didn't like the schedule. I didn't like the drive. I didn't like the people. It was causing me a tremendous amount of stress. And to make the decision to quit that job, I'm thinking of it similar to you moving your entire life to another city, to leave that job and that guaranteed 6-figure a year income was something I was so terrified to do. But when I did that, I got pregnant, and then I got pregnant again. And so sometimes it's not the supplements and the food, it's that too, but sometimes it's also just your lifestyle, where you're working, where you're living, who you're living with, who you're talking to, who you're spending time with can make all the difference.
Yeah. And it's this systems approach, which I think is very valuable, to try some. I'm sure we've all tried things and we're like, well, that didn't work for me. Well, what else was going on? A lot. We've really got to look at and evaluate what we bring in to make ourselves move into wellness, whether it's a biohacking tool or a supplement or a modality that you pick up from a practitioner or something that's going to work on the total nervous system. Like, look at all the pieces, because the picture I love is that if we're walking around and you've got terrible pain in your left leg, and you've got 6 tacks in your foot and you take out 4 of them, but you don't address the other 2, you're still going to be in a lot of pain every time you step. So what does the picture look like for you? And that's all, that's different for every human being, but that's the work worth doing, in my opinion.
I agree. I had some really bad digestive issues. And so I stopped eating wheat and I took the probiotics. This is last year. And I had already been speaking about emotional causes of digestive disorders, but there was still something in my life I wasn't fully addressing. I wasn't fully ready to let go of. And so stopping eating wheat didn't change it at all, even though the test says like, don't eat wheat. It's like that wasn't enough. I had to claim my needs. I had to set an expectation. I had to voice my feelings, and I had to make a decision. And that is what started the healing of my gut. I know I love all the other stuff too, and I could talk all day about, pick a body system. And I'm not a doctor, but I've read enough studies and cases and stuff for the past 15 years that I could definitely hold my own in a conversation about many, many topics. But if you're not pruning that tree, if you're not making those changes, can't overeat or supplement yourself out of it.
What is it? Can you paint the picture? What does it mean like to prune the tree of the body? What might that look like for someone, to put it into something practical?
Yeah. So it's something it's something that's fruiting in your life that you need to like let go of, right? You can't hold on to that fruit all the time, or other blossoms won't bloom. So it could be a job that you're ignoring the fact that this job is not a good place for you. You're ignoring the fact that, or you're choosing the money or something, or the lifestyle over that. It can be, an issue in a relationship. It doesn't always mean leave the relationship. I think people do go there too quickly, but sometimes it means, yes, of course, like this idea of not having expectations as a way to peace. That's so fake. Like you have to, in order to have boundaries, you have to have an expectation. You had an expectation I would show up today because I made this appointment with you, right? They're healthy expectations. So it's asserting those expectations. Or when you're asserting your expectations, the other person changes meeting those expectations or changes that agreement, then you leave that situation. You don't stand there like grounded, growing roots into a bad situation where you're not going to thrive. It could mean, I love this pumpkin spice scented candle every fall, but it's full of toxins. And as much as I love having that, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I'm going to get pure beeswax candle instead. So it's really just taking a good look at what are the things that are in the way of your healing and pruning those back.
What are some of the favorite episodes that are coming up on the documentary series
Oh
that
my
you're really
gosh.
excited about for people to see?
Yeah. So
Just give us one or two. You don't have to spill the beans on.
So episode 4 that digs really deep into trauma, trauma and how we hold on to those traumas and how our body expresses those. And then I think it's episode 6, The Wisdom of the Body, where we talk to so many experts about how to really hone in on your intuition, heart math. Dr. Roland McCready talks a lot about like the physiology of intuition, which you probably heard a lot about at the recent event that you went to. I think that one is one of my favorites. And then the one on relationships, where you learn some real practical tools to invite more connection into your relationships and ways to really, look, self-reported loneliness converts to a 51% increase in a cardiovascular event. I mean, wow. So you have some real tips and practical tools on to do that. I think those are probably my favorite episodes. But I can't wait to hear what yours are and others.
Amazing. Well, I know people are going to watch. Did you have any other requests of the audience?
I just ask you to really choose love for yourself in every moment. Check in, and when you're making a decision, are you making that in a way that's helping you connect deeply to yourself and be honest with yourself, to connect with the people that matter, and to really foster that? Because you can't go back and do it again, right? We have to choose in this moment and connecting back to nature. You can find me on social media, on Instagram or Facebook. I have a group on Facebook for people that do choose to watch the docuseries, loveismedicineproject.com. And you can find me there on Facebook at Love is Medicine.
Beautiful. I also need you to answer a question everybody closes with. And that is, we touched on it a little bit. I actually have two for you. But what does it mean to you to be beautifully broken?
Oh, yes. So I believe that there is beauty in all of our emotions, because our emotions are emotions. They move us. The purpose of our feeling sense, the purpose of being a human and feeling, is to move us towards or away from things that enrich our experience, enrich our connection, or keep us safe. And so to be beautifully broken is to stand in the beauty of these moments and understand that even our brokenness, our periods of pain, there's a longing for healing. There's a longing for love. There's a longing for connection. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful, because without, like, sadness is another word for desire, right? When we're sad, when we feel broken, when we're in pain, the pain is because we're longing for the opposite of that. And I think it helps us. The beauty is where we really connect with our humanity and seek what is good. And that also means what is healthy.
That's beautiful, Razi. I would also ask you if you could leave the audience with a question for self-examination on something they might do. What's one thing you could leave the audience with just to try to activate that level of action? Like, how do I, what are the questions to ask oneself? There's lots of great information out there. Like you said, we're drowning in information. What we're starving for is knowledge, which is that information in practice. What's a good question for the audience to just for self-examination? How do I activate? How do I move forward?
Yeah, so I would take the one, and this can change throughout the month or throughout the year, but I would take the thing that when you wake up in the morning, the first time you have that like feeling, like that shrinking, like the problem in your life that is the thing that is the most worrisome, most bothering, most in the way of your vitality and your joy. So I would take that, and then I would ask yourself to really honestly examine why am I in this situation? Like, why is this happening? And really have that conversation with yourself, because you have so many answers. And often when we look for someone else to answer that for us, we're just looking for validation of what our intuition already knows, or we're looking for a way to avoid the pain of really looking at it. But once you start taking those steps of action, it always helps lessen the pain when you actually endeavor to solve this problem for yourself.
Yeah, I heard take ownership, and you have the answers inside of you.
Mm-hmm. I believe that.
You have the gold.
I fully believe that.
I believe that too. Well, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Great, Freddie. Thank you. I'm
just such a fan. So honored. You're definitely one of the people I was really excited to interview when I started this over 8 months ago.
So much. That is so kind. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm going to I'm gonna integrate this into the audience, and when we send this out to the Beautifully Broken audience, we'll leave everything in the show notes where they can see the documentary and see the naturopathic news and newsletter, and wherever they can get in and get that good information to up level. I'm excited to have this as a resource, and I'd love to have you on again in the future too. Any new projects, you just let me know.
So generous. Thank you so much, and thank you for the work that you're doing. It's really beautiful. Thank you, Freddie.
Thank you. All right. Namaste. Ladies and gentlemen, you made it to the end of the podcast. Now, in a world where the average attention span is less than 10 seconds, we just spent almost an hour together. And I think this is the beginning of something really beautiful. Now, one way to support the podcast is to head over to freddysetgo.com and check out my newly launched page, Freddy's Faves, where I've linked every 5-star product and healing modality you hear about on the show. Most offer significant discounts by clicking the link. And please know, it doesn't cost you anything extra, and at the same time, they support the show through affiliation. So check out Freddy's Faves on freddysetgo.com. This episode of the Beautifully Broken podcast was brought to you by our sponsor, AmpCoil, upgrading the vibrations of hearts, minds, and bodies all over the world. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's show, head over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review. Grabbing a download is like giving this virtual thumbs up that we're doing it right. And if you want to connect with me, shoot me a message on Instagram at freddysetgo.com or at freddysetgo. That's all for today. Our closing. The world is hurting. We need you at your very best. So take the steps today to always be upgrading, whatever it takes to move the needle. Remember, while life is pain, putting those fractured pieces back together is a beautiful process. I'm your host. I love you. Namaste. Have a wonderful day.
American Giant makes great clothing, sweatshirts, jeans, and more right here in the U.S. Visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order with code STAPLE20. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com, code STAPLE20.
It's time to turn your daydream into your dream job. Wix gives you the power to turn your passion into a moneymaker with a website that fits your unique vision and drives you towards your goals. Let your ideas flow with AI tools that guide you, but give you full control and flexibility. Manage your business from one dashboard and keep it growing with built-in marketing features. Get everything you need to turn your part-time passion into a full-time business. Go to Wix.com.
With a $5 meal deal with new McValue. You pick a McDouble or a McChicken, then get a small fry, a small drink, and a 4-piece McNuggets. That's a lot of McDonald's for not a lot of money.
Prices and participation may vary. McDouble meal $6 in some markets for a limited time only.